Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this series we are starting the labs that are important for DP200 examination, which is implementing an Azure data solution. And in this series of labs we are going to follow all the labs that are available for DP200 implementing an Azure solution from Microsoft Learning, and there are about 9 different labs, and today in this video we're going to complete the lab for Azure for Data Engineer. But if you really look into this lab, this is more like a scenario based, where you're just looking at a particular company and then trying to identify what is going on with the data, identify the evolving world of data, okay, with respect to a particular company. Figure out the data need and Azure data platform services that this company may use, and identify what you need to know or you need to do as a data engineer, okay, and finalize the data engineering serviceable for adventure works. So this is like a scenario based. If you're in a class, then you will be working with a couple other students in a group and coming up with innovative ideas. So instead of doing and going through this line by line, what I decided just to give you an overview in this particular slide. So let's go through this quickly, and this is gonna be your lab 1, Azure for Data Engineer. Alright, let me get some more real estate. Alright, so data, if you think about it, it's always overgrowing, and it's overgrowing at an unbelievable speed. So there are lots of questions that you need to answer. Here are some of them. How do you deal with such a large amount of data? How do you store them? How do you process the data? And just having the data doesn't mean much. How do you find information out of the data that you have? For a long time we have on-prem solutions. Do you think the on-prem solution is still the best? What about the cloud? What can cloud bring to the table? Okay, those are lots of questions, and plus other regulations, how to store data, your sensitive information, all kinds of stuff will come in. But here are some of the questions that you should think just when you are dealing with data or you are working as a data engineer. So again, information is power. Then what is data? Data is valuable. Okay, so data is valuable, and secure it, manage it, and process it to find information. So if you look at most of the breaches, data breaches, people they are always after the data that you store. Most of the time data has the most important information, like your social security, bank information, customer service. So data, most of the time it's very secure, and a lot of time the companies they spend a lot of money just to protect their intellectual property. Now once you have a lot of data, you start fitting the data to a machine learning and artificial intelligence. So go beyond your traditional data capabilities, data analysis capabilities, to make decisions, because at that level, when you have so much of data, your traditional data processing may not work anymore. So you're dealing with so much of data, you are now going to ML, machine learning, and AI, but it's helping you to make decisions, be futuristic. Now general, this is probably unknown information. How do you store data? So data, they usually come in 3 main forms. Structured data, which is schema based, and we are most familiar with these are the relational database types: SQL, Microsoft SQL, Oracle SQL, MySQL, and they will have tables. They have primary key, foreign key to connect back to one table to another. Okay, very structured. Every record they will have similar set of information. Then comes the semi-structured data type. Here you have a tags or key based, and NoSQL is a semi-structured database. And lastly, we can also have unstructured data. Just think about images and videos, and this data these days it's becoming so much abundant all over the world. we are now thinking about how to analyze and store and process this type of data. All right. So before we move forward, NoSQL data type, they are very popular these days. And just note that there are 4 different kinds of NoSQL database. We have key value store. Here is just like most common would be a JSON formatted file where you have a key and then a value. Document DB, graph DB for they will have edges and they can build relationship between different edges. And finally something else called column-based storage, which is different from the row-based database type that we are used to with the relational databases. Alright, let's go to regulations briefly. And I mentioned in the very beginning, when you're dealing with the data, you always have to think about regulations and where you can store the data, especially when you're going to the cloud. Do you have to meet GDPR requirements? Do you have to meet PCI DSS? Do you have to meet any other regulations? And for the storage, if you are meeting certain regulations for storage, can your data move between international boundaries? Because you cloud, when you are asking for a storage, you do not know for application what are the actual data centers your data will be replicated. So you have to be very careful and make sure that you understand when you're moving to data, you are actually meeting your regulatory standards. And finally, when you go to the data and you're moving so much data to the cloud, what is the cloud? What the cloud offers, the cloud provider that you're choosing, do they have the latest and greatest tool set to analyze the data, understand the data, perform analysis efficiently, and come up with solutions? Okay, so that's also important. So some benefits of the cloud. This is really a easy 900 topic that you should already know. CapEx and OpEx. CapEx would be your on-prem solution or on-prem expenditure type model, where you are investing a large amount of money at the very beginning. You are setting up your data center, and then over the years you're just approximating your cost for the next 5 years. So it's a large initial investment, and then your investment will go down. But if the technology changes or unexpectedly if you grow, you will have trouble. You'll end up spending more money again. OpEx is the other model which the cloud uses, where you do not have to set up your own data center. You do not have to spend a lot of money to get started. It's just you can use this as operational expense every year. You start small, you try it out. If you don't like, you get rid of it. Or if you want to scale, cloud is built to scale, to be high available. So learn that cloud supports your OpEx, which is the operational expense model. And usually if you compare, you will see that it's much more cheaper. And other thing to consider is per server licensing. So if you are in a traditional on-prem environment, if you're buying a software, every server you have to buy a different license for them. Cloud, you have a easier solution when you move to the cloud. They have a different licensing program, which is again is usually cheaper. Now again, for maintaining your own data center, you will definitely need highly skilled professionals, and they will have to understand and implement patches. If something goes wrong, they'll be responsible for backing up the data, making sure high availability is there, encryption is there. You can think about hundreds of things that you need to do to maintain an efficient data center. When you move to the cloud, you are giving all those responsibilities back to, or some of those responsibilities back to Microsoft. I would say most of it, based on how you choose it. And then you focus on the real development and real analysis. So you're giving all the headaches for data maintenance to Microsoft. They have skilled individuals. They spend billions in securing their infrastructure. You're trusting their infrastructure. Your own energy you are spending on looking at the data, analyzing the data, using all the tools that Microsoft is supporting. And again, as I said, scalability and high availability, they're core features of the cloud. So when you move, you expect that you are building for scalability. If I need to go and scale dramatically, I can do that in minutes. High availability, my solution is always high available. There, if you go to any cloud vendor, they have global presence. So you can have data replicated all over the world. So all those features, they're so easy to implement on the cloud. It's unbelievable. And again, some technologies like in the Cosmos DB, if you go with Azure, you will get 99.999% of SLA uptime. So that is unbelievable. Okay, so those are some of the benefits. And TCO is the total cost of ownership. This is again a easy 900 item you should understand and know. If you just go and search for TCO, you should end up a page, TCO calculator. Okay, so this one should take you to the total cost of ownership. Here you can determine your server load, your on-prem server load, and you just put your databases or whatever storage that you have on-prem, and then you go, and then if you go to the at the very end, it's just gonna tell you how much money you're gonna save if you move to the cloud from the data center. Okay, so use this calculator, understand it, configure it to your as best as you can to mimic your on-prem, and realize how much money you could be saving when you move to the cloud. All right, so there are some of the benefits, and there are definitely many more. So think about them. All right, so next, let's just talk about what does the data engineers do. What I like to call the deal with the mess. I don't know if I call myself a fully dedicated data engineer or complete data engineer, but I have dealt with a lot of data in my life. So whenever I look at the data, it usually comes to me as a mess. Meaning it's probably something is wrong about the data. You have to do some cleanup. It's been rare that I already got a data set where I didn't have to do any kind of cleaning before I process it. So expect some mess, expect that some file that you have to go through some processing, you have to do some validation. Even before you do some analysis, you have to do some cleaning, you have to understand it. Now your data can come to you as SQL, NoSQL, semi-structured or unstructured. As a data engineer, so you have to understand these technologies. Okay, you cannot say, no, I'm just a MySQL developer, I just cannot deal with NoSQL anymore, I don't want to deal with the unstructured data. You cannot say that anymore. As a data engineer in today's evolving world, it's expected that you are knowledgeable in all areas of data, types, all types of data, and then you will be able to support them. You're expected to understand Hadoop, Cosmos DB, SQL, Python, Hive are various technologies that we deal with data processing, data analysis, storage of data, NoSQL, all that kind of stuff. And the list is growing. So you always have to kind of go back and relearn and align yourself with the industry. Now, again, this is something I talked about a little bit ago as well. So you want to focus, as a data engineer, you want to focus on processing, understanding, and coming up with solutions for the data. You don't want to spend time on setting up the servers or maybe the database servers that you need, the processing servers that you need. You don't want to do that. Azure gives you the ability. So you are no longer, like on-prem, you probably have to create a ticket to the SQL team, one ticket to the server team to give you the right server that you want. Then SQL team will give you the database, and then you test it, and it's been weeks or months before you have something ready. No, not with the cloud. As a data engineer, you should be able to create your own resources using Azure and be able to start working on it immediately. That is what is the expectation. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, so in data, as a data engineer, there is one term that I have come across several times, and it looks a little confusing in the beginning, but it's really not, and that is about loading. And just remember, there are two different ways to load the data before you start processing. One is the extract, transform, and load. That is the traditional one, where you extract the data from a data source, then you transform the data to a particular type, okay, and that is to be used by a particular platform, and then you load the data. And over here what happens, the transformation of the extract to something usable can take a lot of time. So this process or this flow, it slows down because of this transformation step involved. Okay, Azure, it supports this particular workflow, extract, load, and transform. So where you just get the extract of the data, you just load it to the cloud, say Cosmos DB, you just load it as is, and transformation, it happens on the cloud. So you can immediately start using the data. And another benefit of this, here you'll only be able to transform to one particular format to be able to use with one particular application maybe. And here, since the data is already available on the cloud, now you can transform to multiple different types, and then it could be fed to multiple different type of applications. So just remember the difference between extract, transform, load versus extract, load, and transform. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so now next question is, what does Azure can do for a data engineer? Azure is enormous, and there are really so many services. I even can't say that I know all of them. I'm very comfortable with the Azure Storage. I use it a lot. Data Store, Databricks, I will talk about it. SQL Database is something I have used it somewhat. Azure Cosmos DB, I have good experience. The other one, I have brief experience, so I'll just review them with you. Maybe some of you will have more experience, but the list does not end here. This is only some of the items that we're gonna cover, and there are more services that you have within Azure. This is some of the majors. Okay, so let's just start with the Azure Storage account. If you have any experience with Azure, you probably familiar with this Azure Storage account. It's built as highly scalable or massively scalable object store. It supports blobs, files, queues, and tables. And here, let's start doing some demos. So if you just come to the Azure environment and you just do storage accounts, and you can come to the storage account. And these days, storage v2 is the most common. So I have two over here that's deployed. Let's just use one of them. So if I go in, you see that it has support for containers, files, tables, and queues. Containers are scalable, cost-effective storage for unstructured data. So really, if you just don't need any relationship, this type of storage is the cheapest in Azure to store your data. You also have file share that supports the SMB protocol and NFS file share. Tables are for tabular data storage, and queues for messaging. Effectively scale apps according to traffic. So other thing, Azure Data Lake Storage and HDInsight. We'll look into these two in a little bit more details later, but both of them, those two data solutions, they also uses Azure Storage to store data. Again, as I mentioned, it's the cheapest when you don't need any structure in your data. And there are multiple ways you can upload data. You can use Azure File Explorer, you can use a browser, Easy Copy, Visual Studio PowerShell, and lots of security features are already built in. If you look over here, you can go to configuration to look at some of the security, like secure transfer minimum, TLS, replication for the high availability. Here is the role-based access control if you want to use. Then through the networking, you can also restrict your whole network based on private network and only allow access to the storage account through particular subnets. Okay, and there are other security built in, like data protection is also available over here for all of the containers. Okay, so just go through some of these features over here and understand a little bit more what it can do. But it is one of the most commonly used storage solution within Azure. All right, So let's go to the next one, Azure Data Lake Storage. So Azure Data Lake is Microsoft Hadoop implementation. So if somebody talk and ask you, hey, can Azure do Hadoop, you can say yes, Hadoop is the data lake storage. There are two generations of Azure Data Lake Storage. There are currently available, generation 1 and generation 2, but now you should be thinking only about generation 2. Generation 2 is the latest one, and it can use as a storage solution for Hadoop, Azure Databricks, or Azure HDInsight. And again, this data lake storage you'll be using when you need a massive amount of data to store, and you require unlimited scalability. So think about massive amount of data, and again, for the security, you have RBAC available, you probably have firewall and data encryption, all those built-in features that Azure provides. All of the security features will be available to you as well. Okay, so let's come over here. Let's just search for Azure Data Lake. Let's see if something comes up. Data Lake Storage Gen 1. I need the Gen 2. Just Data Lake. Alright, here I am still also getting Data Lake 1. I'm just gonna go to this one. I'm not gonna create anything. So again, deployment would be very similar, just as any other deployment. So you would create the Data Lake Storage Gen 1, and then in this particular subscription, I don't have ability to create a Gen 2 or Gen 1, any data lake, but you might. And here is in Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is in general availability. Okay, you should not be using Gen 1 anymore, and you can click on this particular link, and it's gonna tell you how to migrate your Gen 1, if you have one, to Gen 2. Okay, so and here it's gonna give you the recommended step, how to migrate your data and all of that stuff. But it would be very easy for you to create. It's just subscription, and you create a resource group, you figure out where you want to deploy your data lake storage, and then come up with a unique data store lake name, and then just go through the pricing, encryption, what kind of encryption you need, and you can use the managed by data lake storage generation 1. You can have do not enable encryption, which I do not recommend, and you can also use the keys, your own keys, using the key vault. Okay, and you'll be able to create a data lake storage for you to store massive amount of data. All right, let's go and take a look at Databricks. So previous data lake, I told you that think about Hadoop. At least let me put it over here. Think Hadoop. Okay, and then for Databricks, think Apache Spark. Spark is really stores its data in it's really analytics and data processing engine, and it's enterprise grade, fully managed and secure big data and machine learning platform. So you can use the Spark to query your data, and again with the Apache Spark, your RBAC is available, or Azure Databricks, it's your RBAC is available. Okay, so let's go and see if we can find Azure Databricks here. So Azure Databricks, it came up. Databricks is right there. So click on that one again. So creation of the Azure Databricks, and so here you just click on create Azure Databricks service. Again, you have very similar experience, just like anything else. Again, here this subscription, okay, my subscription is disabled actually, so I have to go to another subscription. But really, what you would do, you would select the sponsorship, you get the resource group, you have to create a workspace name, and then you're gonna choose a pricing tier. And right now there are 3 different pricing tier that are available. You can go with a premium tier, 14-day free DBU tier. You can go with a premium tier with a role-based access control. You can go with a standard tier where you have the Apache Spark secure with Azure AD, and you would have to do the networking and in your own virtual network, and you have to figure that out. And then tags is very standard, and you just create your Azure Databricks solution. So let's come back to a presentation again. So you'd be using to analyze and process your data, and this is analytics and data processing engine. Alright, then comes the Cosmos DB. So Cosmos DB, when I first started learning, I learned this term for the first time. It's a planet scale solution. That means Cosmos DB is everywhere, available for the high availability. It supports 99.999% SLA and less than 10 millisecond of response time, which is unbelievable. And the beauty of Cosmos DB is that it supports various type of data model. Like if you have SQL structured data, yeah, you use the SQL API and move your data to Cosmos DB. You have MongoDB you're using currently with the semi-structured data, use the MongoDB API to move your data to Cosmos DB. Cassandra, that supports the column data. If you're using that, yeah, use the Cassandra DB API, move to Cosmos DB. Similarly, Gremlin DB for graph data, table API. So it's one solution that can provide a lot of different, that can solve a lot of different scenarios. So it's very widely used solution. And if you have any need to very high availability for your data, you should think about it. And developers, they can use the Cosmos DB API or Azure Data Factory to ingest data to the Cosmos DB. So did we look at Data Factory? We have not. So those are the two things that you can use to ingest data to the Cosmos DB. Next is the Azure SQL Database. This is the PaaS solution, not the standard Microsoft SQL Server. So here Microsoft is going to maintain all of the features of SQL databases on the cloud as a platform, as a service. So you don't have to do anything. You just focus on uploading your data, processing your data, creating your tables, and that's all. This one supports the online transaction processing, OLTP. It's a managed relational database. It can also support unstructured data if you have XML type data. And you can consider this as more flexible than standard MS SQL Server. You don't have to worry about the security. It does support the TSQL query, and lots of security features like advanced threat protection, encryption, auditing, multi-factor authentication, firewall. All of them are supported. So take a look into that. Again, this subscription is we won't be able to create, but I can take a look at it. So Azure SQL is right there. So you just click on it. Again, you create Azure SQL resource, and once you click on it, okay, it's gonna tell you what do you want to create. SQL database, SQL managed instances, SQL virtual machine. This is one that you would be most likely selecting if you want manage instances to provide full SQL Server access and features compatibility for migrating SQL servers to Azure. So that's the beauty of it. So let's go back. And the next one that we are going to cover is the Azure Synapse Analytics. This one, again, I have not used too much, but it combines the data warehouse, SQL, big data analytics, and the data ingestion. So it kind of combines three different services. And the thing that I always think about this one when I need the massive parallel processing MPP, and again, as I talked to you in the very beginning, it uses the extract, load, and transform, the ELT approach. So it loads the data quickly, and then its data is available for any transformation. Again, this service is also support the DSQL. Alright, let me just find if this one is available in here in the Azure real quick. Yeah, if you search for it, Azure Synapse Analytics, you can click on it. If you want to create it, you just click on it again, create the Synapse workspace. Here it's a little bit more involved than other type of deployments. Here you need to choose your subscription resource group, your workspace name, and you need to select a data here. The data lake storage generation 2 is automatically selected. Okay, and then you have to assign your account name, a file system name, and here they're just telling you how Azure will automatically grant the workspace identity data access to the specific data lake stored Gen 2. After that, you will have to configure the security. In the security, you have the admin username, password that you have to configure. You have to configure the encryption, and you have to tell whether you need the system assign manage identity. Then you configure the networking and the tags, and then you create the database or create the service. Okay. The next one is the stream analytics. Stream analytics is really when you have streaming data. Think about IoT or point of sale, where you are periodically sending lots of data back and forth, and you need to look at data, look for anomalies, and respond back to the data almost in real time. So this is the solution that Azure has. So again, if you search for stream analytics, you will see the stream analytics clusters and stream analytics jobs. So we will just go to one of them just to review what to do. You can again create, and this deployment is pretty easy. So there's only one main page that you have to configure. The cluster name, the location, your subscription, and the resource group, and that is all that you need. And if you need to learn more about it, you can just click on this particular link. It will take you to the overview of your stream analytics cluster, which is right now in a preview mode, but it will tell you what it can do for you. All right, we have few more. Azure Data Factory. This one is really think about the pipeline. Like you have heard about Kafka, which is also used for pipelines. This Azure Data Factory is used to create pipelines and to move data between various stores. And also, once you have the data, you can look at the data in a meaningful way. So that's the goal of Azure Data Factory. So let's just look for Data Factory in here. Let's see if I can find something as your data factories. Okay, so if you click on it again, if you create Azure Data Factory, you have few more tabs in here. Basics is again region name, and you gotta choose. There are two different versions. Go with the V2, that's the default. Git configuration. If you have a Git configuration, so you can get the project name, repo name, branch name, and all of that. You can use the Azure DevOps or GitHub for your repository. You will configure your network, whether you need a public endpoint or a private network for better security. From the advanced, you have to enable encryption. If you are using managed key, you have to configure that one. Then tags the standard, and you'll be able to create this one. The next I want to talk about is the Azure HDInsight. This is for ingesting, analyzing, and processing big data. Azure HDInsight supports batch processing and data warehousing. It includes Hadoop, Apache Hadoop capabilities like Hive, HBase, Spark, and Kafka. And if you think about it, Hadoop stores data using HDFS file system. Spark, on the other hand, stores data in the memory, makes it 1,000 times, I don't know, maybe 100 times more faster than Hadoop. And we use Storm for real-time analytics solution, and Kafka for creating pipelines. Let's take a quick look at HDInsight. HDInsight clusters. So again, if you go there and if you try to create one, let's look at how difficult. So this one also a little bit more involved. So again, you have to provide the cluster name, cluster credential, and over here you have to determine what is the storage account that you're gonna use, and you have to select a primary storage account, a container, data lake storage generation 1 access. You have to configure that. If you have any other Azure Storage that you want to link, you can do that. Custom embodied DB, if you are using external embodied database for greater flexibility, you can configure it here. If you have external metadata store, you can configure here as well. And then security and networking kind of jumbled together here. You gotta set the TLS version that you want to support. I always recommend 1.2 if you can. Network security, inbound, outbound, you have to configure. Then if you want to enable private link, you can do that. Then you will provide the virtual network name. Encryption in transit, do you want to encrypt your data? Again, I would recommend that, so you do that. Encryption at rest, if you want to provide your own key, you can do that. Enable encryption at host temp data disk, do that. If you want user as a manager entity, you can configure it from here as well. Okay, and then finally configuration and pricing, and then you go to your tags and you will be able to create your HDInsight cluster and be able to use it. The last one we want to talk about is the Azure Data Catalog. This one is typically used to discover, understand, and consume data, and it supports crowdsourcing. So if you have a lot of crowd, if you want to build a catalog from input from lots of people, you'll be using this particular service. Okay, let's look at this one if we can find it. So Azure Data Catalog is right here. So you click on it. Again, this for my subscription is I can't do much. Only one data catalog is supported per organization. So it's if you have your organization, you can have only one. If a catalog has already been created for your organization, you cannot add additional catalogs. Okay, so in my subscription, it's not even available to me. So this is something else that just keep in mind. If you need a crowdsourcing, if you want to build a huge content, you can use this data catalog service to do that. All right, so let's go back over here. So really, instead of doing this lab in a group, we try to cover as much as different topics this lab covers, or this group discussions covers, and we have gone over very briefly on different data solution that Azure offers. And as we go through this various labs, we'll look into some of the services in much greater detail, and I would recommend that spend some time to look at all those different topics that we talked about. I'm going to give you the link to this particular lab, and good luck if you are studying for DP200 examination. Thanks for watching the video. If you like it, please give me a like and subscribe for more exciting videos. Thank you.